Hello aqua friends, I have this beautiful winter cardinal tutorial for you today, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about the process I go through when I'm doing a painting. I start off with a good reference sketch, and then while I'm looking at the photo, I take out all of my color swatches and I decide on the colors that I'm going to use. Okay, and the second thing I do is plan my layers. So I was thinking about masking out the branch, but that makes a very significant contrast because the background is so dark. And I don't think I would like that effect. I want it to be a lot softer. So I already know that I am going to just lift these main branches out. When I do the wet on wet technique, I will just lift out some of these main areas. I want the bird to be the center of attention. Now the bird, because of his bright colors, I will definitely need to mask him out. So I do plan on masking the bird. Now you can see these berries in the background. They're very blurry, and I think I can use my little sponge dabbers with some paint to get that sort of effect. So I plan on doing that. And there are some lighter areas, kind of see how this circular smudge, I plan on using the sponges to lift certain areas. So that's how I go about planning how to paint a picture. Okay, so the next step is that we're actually going to have to mask out the bird. I'm gonna have to let it dry, and then we can get started on this really pretty background. So after masking the outline of the cardinal and letting it dry, I wet the whole background. I'm using the Princeton Elite 1.5 inch flat brush. I'm very excited about signing up to the Amazon affiliate account so that if you guys are interested in getting any supplies, I'm gonna be listing the supplies from now on that I'm using, and this will just help me make more videos for you guys. It helps me out a little bit to cover some of the costs. So if you want to check that out in the description below. So back to what I'm doing here. As you can see, I've chosen all those really wonderful plums and greens. I used some Payne's gray in this one and shadow green, and I'm getting in those dark colors for the background. So I had really saturated the paper really well, and I have a lot of time to work and play around. So by tilting my paper, I'm letting the paint run together, helping it along with a spritz of water, and immediately I'm testing out the wetness with my sponges. It's not having much of an effect yet with my daubers, and as the paper dries, I'm just waiting, 30 seconds, testing it again. As you can see, it's not making much of a difference. So I know, okay, it's still wet, it's too wet, but I'll keep going and I'll keep testing it. Okay, well, I'm starting to see a little bit of effects here with the blue. I'm actually picked up blue onto the sponge dabber to add those berries in. Very soft background I'm going for. So I'm adding these in. Now, as the paper dries, I am doing controlled blooms. Except there, my brush was a little too wet and I made quite a watermark there. But you know what? It's a happy little accident. There's not much I could do about it now, and I'm just going for it. It will just be, part of the picture, and to make that look like it was part of the plan, I decided to actually take some water on my fingers and splash a little bit more onto the paper. As you can see, a little bit more blooms there. So I did that on both sides, and then there I go, sprinkling the water. Okay, so it's gonna make more blooms and it'll blend in better. And I'm adding some more berries around that area. Now the background is not as dark as you can see in the reference photo. I would have had to do another layer, and to tell you the truth, with the holidays, guys, I just didn't have time. And I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I know that my family had a good time. It's so much fun to spend time with family. Once the background dried, as you can see, I took off my masking gunk and removed everything, and I'm starting to paint the bird. I am using a combination of the Scarlet Lake. I did also use some quinacridone red with neutral tint just to make some shadowed areas. So there are some darker, almost burgundy black areas on a cardinal, on his wings and tail feathers. So while everything is wet and soft, I'm just wanting to block in these main colors that I'm seeing in the reference photo and getting in those burgundies for the areas I see on his wings. So that's pretty much what this first layer of the bird is going to be, just getting this first layer down and getting the colors established. So remember, guys, this is the ugly stage. The first layer is never gonna look very fabulous, and you just have to trust your instincts and that you're planning that you did previously, and know that it's gonna work out. It's gonna start to look better, and you just have to stick with it. I'm getting in his little feet, his delicate little toes. And as it's drying, I'm putting in more detail. That back wing is all pretty much pretty dark black looking on the underside of his wing. So I'm getting that first layer on his wing while I'm waiting for the body part to dry a bit more. So coming in with a stronger color, I actually mixed the Scarlet Lake with the quinacridone red just to get a little bit more of a reddish red instead of an orangey red, because the Scarlet Lake is really orangey. But to get that bright red, you do kind of need to mix the two together. Quinacridone red all on its own is a little too pink for me for a cardinal. Getting that burgundy, all those shadows under his belly, getting those darker colors in. Putting some detail on the wings now. I'm going through and drawing in those lines that I see and being a little bit more brave with those darker colors and getting those little areas that I need. So I just keep going around the bird. As things dry, I'll work on one section and let that section dry, go back over and start working on another area of the bird. Getting some of the shadow underneath that top set of wing feathers. The black feathers around his face, I am going back over that with a second layer of the neutral tint. And for the most part, for the bird, I was using an either 6 or a 4 round velvet series brush. I really like these Princeton Black Velvet series brush. They're very soft. They only have a very light snap and they hold a lot of water. Going around those delicate little feet and just adding in some more detail. Putting in the fleshy tones. He was looking pretty anemic there. I am filling in the beak. Now there are a lot of orange tones, so I started off with some ISO Yellow Deep on his beak. And when I go back over it, I just used some of the quinacridone red. It made a really nice orangey reddish color for his beak. With my script liner brush, I'm using pure Scarlet Lake and going over and defining some of those very, very soft feathers, making him look a little bit more fluffy. And of course, those head feathers that are just so cute on a cardinal. There's a very, very small, tight area, and I know I'm lazy and I use a marker for that. And I also just use my acrylic pen to get the highlights back. You could have used the masking fluid right from the start if you'd rather do that and have a more pure watercolor, but I'm not like a super traditionalist in that aspect. Now, just to get that branch that he's sitting on defined a little bit more, I'm just going in with a little bit of reddish brown and putting in some of the branches just to be a little bit more prominent because it is very, very delicate right now. After I added in that reddish brown, I took my brush and used a little bit, just a little wet brush, just to get the colors to blend a little bit more so that it stands out more. And that's how I went about doing the piece of branch in the back of his head as well. So that's how I did this, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Have a great week and happy painting.